Now, the countdown to the 2019 National Senior Certificate Examinations is almost up, with matric learners writing on the 23rd of October. And if you're a parent or a matric learner, or you're a parent of a matric learner, you may well be thinking of the next coming weeks with some kind of trepidation, as the season won't just test their intellectual capabilities, but also their resilience and emotional intelligence. And so this morning, Sociologist and Executive Director of the South African College of Applied Psychology, joins us in studio to talk about how parents can better help nurture their child's mental health during these exams. Great to have you here with us, Kenzie.
Morning.
What's going on? Why do we always stress so much when it comes to this stuff? It's like we do it every single year, and generation after generation, every matriculant stresses. Why?
I think it's because we really understand that matric is such an important part of a child's life.
Yeah.
So when they reach matric, we know this is the beginning of the rest of their life. So we treat it like this pinnacle. And I think for me, that really frustrates me, because it's actually the work that we do before that gets you to matric, right? So even though the focus is placed on matric, whether it's at home, whether it's at schools, and the rest of the community, we should also place a lot of focus on the build-up, so that when students get to matric, they're actually comfortable and our pass rates can be high.
Hope all those grade 8 parents are listening right now. But what would you say is the most common mistake that parents make when it comes to helping their children prepare for matric exams?
I think the one thing is communication, and I think that speaks to understanding what's happening in your child's life. Okay. So I think a lot of times we underestimate the pressure that students can be under when they are writing matric. Because for them, this is the first time they're going through it. They have no idea what it's going to be like. Yes, they've just come out of prelims, which a lot of the times tend to be harder than the finals.
Yes.
So for them, they've got a lot of anxiety, they've got sleepless nights, and then we're coming in and we're saying, you're going to be fine, just study hard, we know that you'll do well. So that increases their own pressure, that increases their anxiety, and I think the most important thing is to actually have open and honest conversations with them, and to actually listen to them when they say, hey, listen, I'm stressed out. Yeah,
so you say it's a lack of that communication that parents kind of miss.
Yes, because we feel like we know what's best, and I can just tell you that you'll be fine and everything will be okay, but sometimes it's actually walking in the journey with somebody.
Yeah, I think you touched on this next question a little bit, but we can expand more on it, on what parents should be aware of in regards to their matric child's mental awareness and mental health awareness in this time particularly.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting is that right now it's October, so it's like World Mental Health Month. So I think that we're living in a really important time where the conversations around mental health, people are speaking out, people are actually talking about the challenges that they're having. And I think that young children, particularly in today's context in South Africa, are more open to having those conversations. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy. So I think that when we're thinking about it, whether as a guardian or as a parent, if a child comes to you and says, I'm stressed or I've got anxiety, it's not to say, just get over it. Or, you know, just sleep on it and tomorrow you'll be fine. It's to actually say, how can I help you? How do I support you? What do we do around the house to ensure that your process and your journey is actually well supported?
Wow. And you were telling me earlier on that you are the guardian of your younger brother, who's also in matric right now, so going through the most. What are some of the factors that contribute to his mental health during this time as well? I mean, you think about the fact that we are in a state, at a stage of life and the world where social media integration and connectivity is everything. We're always subjected to the pressures of having to amount to a certain level, if you will, and that causes a fair amount of anxiety.
Yeah, no, I think the key word that you use there is pressure, and I think what's really been interesting for my brother is watching him sort of try to mediate that, because he knows the expectations that everybody at home has of him, but he also knows that he wants to go to university, he wants to be like his friends. You know, he also wants to post the Instagram selfie of, oh, I just passed my matric exams, just like he did for the matric dance and everything else. So I think that all of that adds a lot of, it creates a new dynamic, because information just flows that much quicker, and social media has such a big influence because it becomes such an important indicator of where we are in life. So if you get 100 likes, it's like, oh, I can feel good about myself. So we utilize that as a way to sort of measure our own success, which can be problematic for young people. So I think as parents, it's also important to have conversations around what kind of role does social media play in your life, and not utilizing it as a crutch, when we should be developing, I think, coping mechanisms in our own life to help us deal with challenges and disappointment and successes.
Wow, wonderful insights. I can't wait to hear then from you when we return about the 5 strategies that you have that parents need to employ during this time to ensure their children's well-being, especially from a mental health point of view. And we'll be continuing our conversation with Kenzie very shortly. And if you are preparing for those exams, yes, okay, it's important, an important part of your life, but remember, it isn't the end-all and be-all of your life. Take a moment to just breathe a little bit while you go through that maths question paper.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. It is your feel-good breakfast show. It's a Tuesday morning, and I'm hanging out with Sociologist and Executive Director of the South African College of Applied Psychology, Kense Khadebe. And earlier on, she shared some advice on how parents can nurture good mental health in their children during the final matric exams, which begin on the 23rd of October. It sounds so ominous when you say which begin. No, they start then. It's okay. Just relax a little bit. But I said to you that I would start by asking you about the strategies that parents can implement within the household with their kids in order to ensure that stress levels are kept down, that their child's mental state is in a good place, especially in preparation for these exams.
I think firstly, it's really important to understand that there are no hard and fast rules. And I think that as parents, each of us would understand how our child behaves and what they respond positively to.
Yeah.
So I think we can take these as like guidelines as opposed to like rules that we should follow. And I think the first thing is to really listen to your child and understand where their emotional well-being is at. So if they're speaking to you, what we were speaking about earlier, if they're speaking to you about having stress, anxiety, listen to them, have open and honest conversations.
Yeah.
Because I think that forms the foundation.
Yeah, so questions like, how are you feeling today? What's stressing you out? And why are you stressed about this particular thing?
Exactly.
Why is it making you feel that way?
Yes, those are great questions because it helps them think through the process and maybe...
Open-ended.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so that's one way of doing it.
I think the next is to also ensure that in the home itself, that we're actually creating a supportive environment for your child to be able to do well. So whether it comes to routine, so setting a routine, everybody knowing what the routine is, understanding perhaps that maybe this week they can't do the chores that they usually do, another week, all of that kind of stuff. So I think it's also important to pay attention to that because that can also impact a child's mental well-being and where their head is at.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and then I think also what's really important is to set realistic expectations with our children because oftentimes as parents we have really high hopes for our children to do well during the matric exams, but ultimately it could go either way. So it's important to understand what's my child's performance. If they were getting 50s leading up to the matric exams, I can't expect them to walk away with a 90 and then be disappointed. So I think it's to actually have that honest conversation with your child to say, what do you want to do after matric? What kind of results do you need to get? And then how do we build you up to where you need to be? It's difficult.
Yeah, I'm thinking that there might be a little bit of a danger in that, let's say, for instance, in that scenario where your child was achieving 50s all throughout the year. You don't want to kind of create the expectation that it's okay to get 50.
Yes, but now listen, you wouldn't address that when it's the matric finals. That's something that you're addressing throughout the year, right?
Yes.
So if you're thinking about, listen, let's say your child wants to go into like BSc, like as a qualification. And we know that maybe you have to get like good grades to get into that. So then you have to say, look, first term, you got 40s, you got 50s. This is not really going to get you into university or whatever it is that you want to do.
Start talking about it then
exactly, because once you speak about it at the 11th hour, that's going to create a lot of anxiety for your child because for them it's going to be, am I going to be able to do this? I'm going to disappoint my parents if I don't meet this standard. And I think what then becomes critical is to explore what alternative options are out there for you after university because that can also reduce a lot of stress. And I think that then leads to the next strategy is learning how to manage that stress when it does arise. Because I think for a lot of young children at that particular moment, maybe they haven't dealt with this level of pressure before, where they know that everybody's looking at how their performance is going to turn out, their teachers, their family.
The community.
Exactly, and we know that stress, you can either have positive stress, which, pushes you to go, and that's a good thing, but then you also do have that inverse relationship where once you have too much stress, it actually can paralyze you. So it's actually learning how to manage and deal with that stress.
You also spoke about creating healthy sleep habits.
And eating habits,
And eating habits as well. That is so important. Drink water.
Absolutely.
Drink water.
I mean, it was a heat wave in Gauteng yesterday. So
shame with the dam levels as well.
Exactly. So I think it's really important and something that we don't think about a lot of times. We don't think about what we consume and how much we sleep, how that can actually impact our performance. So if you are writing exams, you can't, should you really be pulling an all-nighter? Is that really going to improve your productivity?
Never a good idea.
Never really good. I always say rather actually sleep because being awake and fully functional is probably going to be way better for you than having only had 2 hours of sleep, right? And that just goes to planning and preparation as well. But also then eating healthy, ensuring that you're maintaining a good, balanced diet will also contribute to keeping up your energy, ensuring that you can pay attention and that you're not feeling lethargic.
Wow. All right, so I think with tips like that, you are certainly well equipped as parents to help your children have a smooth journey going into their matric final exam scheme. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And of course, we can link up with you at www.sacap.edu.za.
That's correct.
You say SACAP?
SACAP.
SACAP. That would have been 0 points for that question in the exam for me, but I'll take that. www.sacap.edu.za.